This is the Fearless Agent Podcast, where you learn how to make way more money fast selling real estate with your host, the Fearless Agent himself, Bob Loeffler.
And good day to you. This is Bob here at the Fearless Agent Podcast for real estate sales professionals just like you, where we explain that every single thing you've been taught by the entire real estate industry is wrong, and you will make way, way more money in a lot less time by doing the exact opposite. So today's topic, I'd like to talk a little bit about how you are going to stand out from your competition. So I was, a number of years ago, I was at the auto show. How many of you, by a show of hands, have gone to the auto show? Okay, almost all of you, all the guys anyway. So you go to the auto show, they have all the new makes, the new models, the new car smell is wafting through the Civic Center auditorium, and you're looking at all these new cars, and you think, wow, this is amazing. So then I see the Cadillac Seville on a large spinning platter, and standing next to the Cadillac Seville is a leggy supermodel with the little Britney Spears headset in the sequins gown, and she is giving a probably 10-minute long, word-for-word memorized presentation about how wonderful the new Cadillac Seville is, all the features and benefits and reasons why I should go get one. So here's the deal. It must have worked because I went out and got one. So I actually was a Cadillac Seville owner after that. Now, it made me think, here's this woman, nice, young lady, and I don't know if they travel with the auto show or whether they just hire people. I remember the Ice-capades. They would come to town and I used to be a skater. I was a hockey player. But I had friends that were figure skaters, and the Ice-capades would come to town, and they would just hire local people to be in the Ice-capades, people who know how to skate. So maybe they go to a talent agency, and they get this lady, and she gets up on the spinning platter and does her little spiel that she's memorized for the Cadillac folks. So I think she doesn't make a lot of money. It's probably not minimum wage, but it's probably not a lot of money. And so I think, well, how many realtors? I mean, realtors, they earn, I have coaching students, they earn $1 million a year. They earn $500,000 a year. They earn $400,000. They earn $300,000. They earn $200,000. How many realtors learn a 20-minute long or 10-minute long memorized sales presentation? And the answer is literally none. So if I had 100 agents in a room, how many of them, so we teach you a listing presentation, a pricing presentation, a for sale by owner presentation, a buyer presentation, and an investor presentation, and then a way to present offers. So there's basically 6 Fearless Agent presentations that are completely different than what any other agent would ever say. And, my expectation is that you're going to learn those so that you're never in a money-making situation. You don't have where you wouldn't have the exact right words to say that gets this outcome to happen that no other agent can make happen. So every Fearless Agent goes into a listing presentation with a total stranger, and the seller ends up listing their house with them, paying them 7%. Listing for 1 year when everybody else is doing, 90-day listings, and the seller ends up begging you to underprice their house on day one. Well, that little magic trick only happens one way. So you've got to have not a memorized word-for-word presentation, but a series of steps that you don't skip. But how many agents, if I had 100 agents in a room, how many of them would have 5 presentations: listing, pricing, FSBO, buyer, and investor? And the answer is not one. In fact, if I had 1,000 agents in the room, not one of them would have that. In fact, if I had the entire membership of the National Association of Realtors in one room, there wouldn't be one single agent that would have that isn't already a Fearless Agent. So you will be able to do things that your competitors are not able to do when you have that. Now, how many agents in a room of 100 would have even the listing presentation, a killer, kind of memorized, the steps at least, that they love, that works every time? And the answer is none. So that's the problem with the real estate industry. In the auto show, that woman gets up, she gives a knock 'em dead, memorized, 10-minute long presentation. Movie actors, they get up, they give a 10-minute long memorized presentation. People who make the big bucks, they have to do that. If you see I am a professional speaker. I have 60 hours of literally memorized shtick, most of which you're getting here for free, gang, so don't worry about that. But, so are you willing to learn a listing presentation? So when you're a fearless agent, everything is different, the way we do things, and standing out from your competitors is the secret. So I had just had one of my fearless agent coaching students call me, and he's the guy that calls me every once in a while. He says, you got to hear this story. He goes, you got to hear what just happened to me. So he calls a for sale by owner. And the for sale by owner says, yes, I would be willing to hear you out. He goes, but I've talked to a bunch of realtors. They're all the same. And the one thing I care about is the commission. So you're going to have to be cheaper than everybody else. And when you think about it, if all agents are the same, which one would you pick? You'd pick the cheapest one, of course. So because he's a fearless agent, he gets to go. So he goes and he gives the fearless agent for sale by owner presentation, which works, and it leads to the fearless agent listing presentation, which works, which leads to the fearless agent pricing presentation. And at the end of it, the guy lists his house with him. He pays him 7%. And the guy said, you know what? He goes, you were altogether different than any other agent. He goes, I don't know what those other agents are doing, but you're doing something different. I know it will work. And, he said, thank you very much. And obviously got paid 7%. And all the other agents got paid 0. So all the agents who charged 5 got 0. He charged 7 and got 7. So the moral of the story is he had a presentation, and 3 of them in that case, that did the job for him. He didn't have to think, so he was confident. He knew he had the goods when he got there, and that's my job is to make you fearless. I don't want you to be fearful, stammering, wondering what to say. No, I want you to know no matter what they say, exactly what you're going to say in response. So when you go into a listing presentation and you're a fearless agent, you ring the bell, you smile, you pay them a compliment, but you take them right to the kitchen table and you do not take the tour of the house. So anybody that's teaching you should tour the house first, that is insane. That causes horrible, horrible things to happen because it violates a principle. So the principle is this: you never talk commission until they're sold on the price. That means you're never going to talk commission over the phone when you're booking the appointment. You never talk commission until they're sold on the price. You never talk price until they're sold on listing their house with you tonight. And that would happen after you've completed the Fearless Agent listing presentation. You would never talk about you and your company unless they're sold on the idea of using an agent. So if it's a for sale by owner, you're going to have to give the for sale by owner presentation. When they say, yeah, this crazy FSBO idea is out of my mind, I don't know what I was thinking, that was nuts. Then you would do the listing presentation when that works and they say, yes, I'm listing my house with you tonight, you're the guy for me. Then only then would you do the pricing presentation. At the end of that, they're begging you to underprice their house, and only then would you ever mention the commission, if at all, when they're signing the contract. It's the first time you would mention that at all. And it's because you're doing things in the right order. So the very first thing you do after you ring the bell, take them to the kitchen table, is we do this expired list intro that gets their head right, lets them know what's at stake, lets them know this is about success or failure. So that thing that we're doing is completely different than what every other agent does. Because they're taking the tour first. At the end of the tour, the seller says, well, now that you've seen my house, how much do you think it's worth? And it's very difficult not to talk price. If they say, how much do you think my house is worth in the beginning and you haven't taken the tour yet, you say, well, I don't know. I haven't even seen your house yet. We'll get to that in a minute. And then you go into the expired list intro presentation. Then that gets their head right. Then you do this preview of coming attractions. We talked about that on a former episode of the podcast. Then you ask the 4 questions. That's what sells them on you. So at the end of the 4 questions, they have to be saying, oh, this Bob guy, all he cares about is selling our house for way, way more than it's worth. That is what we want. He's the guy. No other agent mentioned it. Obviously, they can't do it. He wouldn't have said it if he couldn't do it. So he's the guy. He cares about what we care about. And then we go on the tour. Then we come back from the tour and you say, well, you've got a great house here. And then we go into the Fearless Agent presentation. So the Fearless Agent presentation, I'll give you a little insight how I design them. Fearless Agent listing presentation, pricing presentation, all the presentations are designed this way. When I was going on listing appointments, I noticed that there's crazy things, insane things, things I didn't want to hear from sellers, bad ideas, nutty concepts, things that aren't true that sellers say. And once they say it, then they're going to defend it to the grave, no matter how crazy it is. So it is an objection-crushing machine. So I just wrote down all the things that I never wanted to hear a seller say to me again. For example, Bob, where are you going to advertise my house? So I said, I'm going to create a presentation that includes a thing that makes that never come up again. And I'm also not going to tell them during the presentation how or where I'm going to advertise their house. Now, I'm kind of my friends think I'm a presentation genius. Okay, maybe they're right. So I created this presentation, and I never again, even one time, heard a seller say, where are you going to advertise my house? How are you going to advertise my house? I never heard them say, are you going to hold my house open, Bob? I didn't want to hear that anymore. So I created a presentation that eliminates that. So it eliminates all the objections. So I just wrote down any objections that people have that don't have anything to do with pricing. Okay, that's a whole separate area of problems. But just the crazy things, ideas that sellers have in their head. Are you going to put flyers on the sign, Bob? Are you going to have flyers? Is there going to be a virtual tour of all that crap? I did not want to hear it again. And I created a presentation that caused me to never hear that again. So that's how the Fearless Agent presentations are designed. Whatever you don't want to hear, you're not going to hear it because I already designed it to make all that stuff go away. So there won't be any objections. There won't be any crazy ideas. There won't be a seller not listening to you, not paying attention. They're going to be answering all the questions, not you. And the objections are crushed long before they ever get them in their head. And that literally takes all your problems away. So the other thing that happens in the listing presentation is you need to sell them on your brand. So whatever your brand, and now some of you work for, let's say, Century 21, which would probably be the most recognizable brand, or Remax, or Coldwell Banker, or somewhat lesser known brands to the public. They're famous with realtors like Berkshire Hathaway or Keller Williams or something like that. And brands that really don't advertise a lot, or they're famous for something other than real estate. Or you work for a large independent where that independent might be famous but only locally to you. So the people from out of town that are moving in would never have heard of it, maybe. Or you work for a little tiny company where it's just, one location and not a famous brand. Or you're the owner and your brand is not famous, like, BS Realty, Bob Smith's place. So whatever that is, you need to talk about the brand. So, obviously I work for Fearless Agent Realty, and then you're going through this thing. So here's the format to selling people on when you're doing presenting. It's point. Write this down. Point, story, data, point. Point, story, data, fear of loss, and then point. You make the point again, and then a nice transition to the next thing. So this is the secret to giving a great presentation. You make your point, which is obviously I work for Fearless Agent Realty. You tell a little story, or you give a little data. If your company is the number one company, if your brand is the number one brand, then you might say that. If it's not, you would not say that. You put fear of loss in it, and then you make your point again, and then you transition to the next thing. So I'm gonna demonstrate that right now. So, and by the way, if any of what we're talking about on our podcast and any of the episodes, if it makes sense to you, if you're earning less selling real estate than you wish you were, and you're open to the idea of having some help, and you want to avoid all the problems that non-fearless agents experience every day. When you're a fearless agent, you sit on a throne made of the skulls of your enemies. You don't have to put up with the baloney that other people do. So if you'd like to learn more, you can call me anytime. 480-385-8810 is my cell phone. And we'll just see if you and what you're trying to do in your real estate career and what we do at Fearless Agent, if that would be a good fit. I don't sell you on coaching. I want to make sure it is a good fit for you. I do all the coaching myself, so you're working directly with me. And for that reason, I can only work with so many people, so I don't want to sell it. I want to make sure it's right for you. I love talking to realtors. Don't think you're bothering me. I got nothing better to do than to make you rich. Please don't email me or text me, because there is no texting or emailing in sales. Call me at 480-385-8810. If for whatever reason you wish you could afford coaching but you can't, please visit fearlessagent.com. Watch our free webinar, 45 minutes, take lots of notes, go to the video training page. And my guarantee to you is that those free videos will be way better coaching than you would pay any other coach in America any amount of money. And if you ever have a question, of course, you can always call me, because we're going to help you one way or the other. So when we're doing our listing presentation and you're talking about your brand, we're following that point, story, data, fear of loss, point, and then the nice transition to the next thing. So if I work for Fearless Agent Realty and there are multiple locations of it, then it would sound like this. I'd say, well, first of all, you've got a great house here. And let me just take a few moments to show you how I work. Now, obviously, I work for Fearless Agent Realty, and I don't know how much you know about our company, but we're number one at this and number one at that. But the reason I chose Fearless Agent Realty is because they do the best job of helping me help you. They do the best job of helping me find the one buyer on planet Earth that's willing to pay way more for your house than it's worth, way more than any other buyer ever would. And, that's the goal. So I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars you would be losing if I were working for the second best brand. I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars you would be losing if they didn't give me the help I need, but it's not worth it for me to find out. That's why I work for them, because you're worth it. Now, not every location of Fearless Agent Realty is created equal either. And I happen to work, and then I would transition into the next thing that's about my particular location of Fearless Agent Realty. Then I'm going to go into, after that is done, some things that what I would call competition crushing machine. So I'm going to talk about things in the Fearless Agent listing presentation that I know my competitor is never, ever going to talk about. So there's certain things that every realtor talks about in their either winging it, rapport building, death disaster loop, or they've learned their company's, God forbid, their company's listing presentation, but they're all going to talk about certain things that I know they're going to talk about. So that's the stuff I'm not going to talk about at all. In the Fearless Agent listing presentation, whatever the other agents do talk about, we don't talk about. And whatever they don't talk about, we do talk about. And that's one way you crush your competitors, because we're talking about the most important things. And those things, oddly, are never talked about by the real estate agents that are out there. So when the seller says, wow, we're talking about the most important thing here with Bob, and those 3 other agents I interviewed, they never mentioned that at all. Bob says it's the most important thing. Obviously, he's right. That is the most important thing. And those other agents never even brought it up. Holy cow. Obviously, that's the way to go. So my purpose, my purpose works like this. If I'm a real estate agent and I'm working with a seller, what is my purpose? You're my seller. I'm your agent. My purpose is the buyer overpays for your house significantly, and they're happy that they did. If they're happy they overpaid, great. You're happy. You're the seller. You got a whole bunch of tens of thousands of dollars you didn't even deserve or think you were going to get. The buyer overpays. They got their favorite house. They don't have some other guy living in their favorite house. And I was that buyer. My seller, or the seller of the house I bought, he sold it for more than it was worth to me, and I'm happy. My purpose, if you're the buyer and you're working with me, my purpose is that you're going to overpay for the house you buy, but you're going to get to live in your favorite house. So I'm consistent. When I'm the buyer, I know I'm going to overpay, but I am going to get to live in my favorite house. I'm not going to have some other guy living in my favorite house. I'm not going to be explaining to my wife 5 years later why we're not living in her favorite house when I'm a realtor, for goodness sakes. When you're an investor, my purpose is that you are going to get the highest rate of return possible, much, much higher than you would get if you worked with any other realtor as an investor. So that's my purpose. So I make it clear in my listing presentation that that's the purpose. So I'm going to do a little reality check here. If you were to just write this down, 95%, in my town it's probably 99, but in your town it's at least 95. 95% of all the houses that sell as a direct result of one form of advertising and one form of advertising only. 95% of the houses in your town sell as a direct result of one form of advertising only. And it's 3 initials. Go ahead, say it. Starts with the letters MLS. Yeah, you know that. Not only do you know that, but the sellers know that. And I have said that in front of rooms full of realtors, and some of them will say, word of mouth? And I go, oh my gosh, it's worse than I thought. Okay. So just write that down. MLS equals 95%. Now I want you to write down below that all the other stuff that realtors talk about all the time. They talk about the sign in the yard. They talk about the tube on the sign, and there's flyers in the tube, and the ads, and the magazines, and the www.reallycoolrealtor.com, social media, open house. There's VT, which stands for virtual tour. There's TV, which stands for television. There's radio advertising, and there's the 1-800, or in your case, perhaps 1-900 numbers. But I think that's about it, right? There's drone photographs. There's all that stuff. Okay. Photography. So did you write those down? Okay. So if 95% of the houses in your market and mine sell as a direct result of the MLS, that means all those other things we mentioned are divided between the 5% that are remaining. And by the way, so one of those remaining things is results in 30% or more of all of those. Which one is it? That's right, it's the sign. So after you've done the MLS correctly, and no realtors do, by the way, I can look at your listings and know you're not doing it right. There's a little trick that we could tweak in every one of your listings that would make the buyer overpay. But all those things that we talked about there that are divided between the 5%, that's the stuff all the realtors talk about on their listing presentation. They never talk about the one thing that matters. By the way, fearless agents don't either, because we don't need to. But that's the reality, is I know that the competitors of yours are talking about all the crap that doesn't matter to the seller. Now, it matters to the realtor. All that stuff is great for the realtor to get buyers that can afford one a half a mile south of your house, of course, but it does not matter to the seller. And then that one thing that does matter to the seller, the MLS, they never, ever do it correctly. So when you're a fearless agent, you go on a listing presentation and you point these things out and they go, that's right. That's right. Those other realtors, they were literally lying to me. And they were lying to them. And some of you are telling these lies that get repeated over and over again, and that has got to stop. And when you're a fearless agent and you quit telling those lies and you're completely different than every other agent, all of a sudden the gates open up, the business is attracted to you, and they'll say, yeah, you're different. You're the guy for me. All of that happens. So everything we do is different as a fearless agent. That's the secret. And again, we're never violating the principles of sales. We're never talking commission until they're sold on the price. We're never talking price until they're sold on listing with you tonight. We're not talking about you and your company until they're sold on the idea of using a realtor. Or if they're a for sale by owner, we're selling them on using an agent first. Then we talk about us and our company. Then they decide to list with us tonight. Only then do we talk price. And when they're sold on the price and the pricing strategy, only then do we mention the commission as an afterthought that they never, ever argue with, so you can charge as much as you want. So again, if any of that stuff makes sense to you, I hope you give me a call. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Please do visit us anytime at fearlessagent.com. You can always call me. I got nothing better to do than to make you rich. If you have a question about your real estate career, even if you're not considering coaching, always happy to talk to you at 480-385-8810. And if you could, please give us a review of this podcast on iTunes. Please give us the 5-star rating. And you can visit us in other places too. But until next week, always do what every fearless agent does. Always have fun. Because if it ain't fun, we're not doing it. Always, now that you have these amazing skills and you can do things that no other realtor can, always be humble. But most of all, be fearless. Thanks again.